Hey there, welcome back to Coding at Home with the Code Hub. Hey there, I'm Matt with the Code Hub. Welcome back to Coding at Home, and we're going to do some actual coding, some Swift coding today. We've been working a lot with Reality Composer and playing with all the different augmented reality stuff we can do. Now, we're not going to leave augmented reality behind. We're actually going to go back to Swift Playgrounds and look at some of the built-in augmented reality playgrounds we have there. One of the big ones is, of course, the Augmented Reality Playground with Swift. It's an intermediate playground. So if this is your first time jumping into Swift coding, this might be a little bit intense. We're going to take it very slow because I think a lot of us are coming back to Swift coding after being away for a few weeks, haven't done the Reality Composer stuff. And we'll go over it again and again. And we're not quite waiting for WWDC, but we have plenty of time to soak this in before next week when we have all these exciting announcements coming out at WWDC. I'm guessing there's going to be augmented reality content. There's going to be machine learning content. Hopefully there'll be some Swift Playgrounds news. We'll look and see what we come up with. But for today, what we're going to do is we're going to open up that dusty old Swift Playgrounds app that we have that's been gathering dust for the last few weeks and write some Swift code. So let's go over to the iPad. All right, here we are. We've been playing around with Reality Composer for the last few sessions. We've done a lot with, especially lately, with books and book covers and using image anchors to discover images around our environment and then composite scenes on top of them, which is very cool and very useful, I think. You can see where actually it'd be kind of fun to build an app where, say, you captured these mythical creatures with, let's say, a ball while you were walking around in real life. Maybe Pokemon already beat us to that idea. But I think it's a great idea for getting people up and out of the house and exploring their environment. You really use the iPad and you have to be pretty active when you are playing around with an augmented reality scene. For example, we have one from one of our students here. Not Gin Patrol. Let's see, I better have it here. So if we go look at our recent files, we had a file dropped here, and it was called Domino Game Reality. So we're going to download this. Now you won't have this on your device, but what I'm going to do is make it available so you can download it. This is one of our crack students downstairs who's been building a game. And this is an early prototype of it. So if we open this up, she just shared this that she built in Reality Composer. I have to move the iPad around to detect a surface. It's a pretty complex app. It's got a few different scenes. I may not have enough space here at this desk. We'll see. All right, so I'm going to tap the sign once I get close to it. So I'm going to tap on this welcome to my game sign. And then I can see if I zoom out, I have a ball, I have a bunch of dominoes, I have a really messy teenager's room that I'm using. Cool, we've just knocked over, no offense, Dylan. We've knocked over all of our dominoes, and the next scene is, we're going to transition to the next scene. So we would have to walk around. Now we've talked a little bit about the gameplay, maybe improving it, but here's our ball. We would tap on that and it knocks all of our dominoes down. Now this was a ton of work and a really interesting use of the physics engine and colors as well. So we'll make this one available from our website. You'll be able to see it on thecodehub.ie. We'll have a link off to this reality file that you'll be able to download and check out yourself and play our students' marble game. So pretty cool stuff. That was Reality Composer. Today we're going to play around with Playgrounds. We're going to open up the Swift Playgrounds application. Just in case you forgot what it looks like, it is that white icon with the orange bird on it. It's going to take a while to load some of my playground images because, like you guys, we haven't opened this in a few days. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go grab a fresh copy because I'm not sure what state I left these in. So let's hit the See All button for more playgrounds. Now, these are all the playgrounds that we were playing with before. We will get back to flashy photos and finish off our Learn to Code playgrounds in a little while. But for now, we're going to work with one of these challenges. So the challenge we're going to play with is this Augmented Reality challenge. You can see if I tap on it, it is an intermediate challenge. So it'll assume that you know a little bit about Swift, which if you've been following along with us, you do, because you've gone through so much of the Swift programming language. And in fact, we were even building an app not that long ago. All right, so let's get this playground. We'll wait for it to download. Okay, cool. Here's my Augmented Reality copy 5. In fact, I'm going to call this one Matt's Augmented Reality, just so that we know who's working on this one. Matt's Augmented Reality, hit done. Now, when you rename your playground, sometimes it takes a little while to update. And you'll see this renaming overlay pop up. And sometimes it won't come back. Now, I have a lot of playground files on here. This is why it takes a little while for me. You might need to force quit Swift Playgrounds and then reopen it. We'll give it a little bit more. But the way, if you are stuck like this, the way you would quit it, and I'm not going to do it right now, but you would double click the home button and bring up all of our apps. You can see all of our photos from the other day, our Ulysses photo, Reality Composer, and you would tap on Playgrounds and then drag up to get rid of it. I'm just going to tap on it, come back to it, and hopefully we've recovered. Nope. Like I said, we have a lot of playgrounds inside our Swift Playgrounds instance. All right, we'll double click, and you know what? We're going to do it. We just quit it. I have Swift Playgrounds down in my dock. If you don't have it in your dock, just hit the home button, and you can find it there again. So there's my Swift Playgrounds. They're all going to load. I'm going to tap on my new downloaded Augmented Reality playground. And we took a brief look at this before we left Swift Playgrounds the last time and entered the world of Reality Composer. But basically this goal here, and I think it's worthwhile going over this, is trying to understand what Augmented Reality is. So if we tap here, it'll explain what Augmented Reality is for us. It's a pretty short description. We just superimpose computer generated images on our user's view of the real world. So Apple commissioned this artist to design some models for us and some sounds that we can experience in augmented reality. So you can see here, we've mentioned on it a few times with the Reality Composer lessons, is it's using this computer vision algorithm. So it's using a bit of machine learning to figure out what it's looking at, where to detect surfaces, whether they're horizontal or vertical, whether they're the images that we've defined as our image anchors. That's all done with this thing called computer vision. So this starts out pretty easy in terms of our re-entry back to Swift. We can just run our code and do something whimsical. So let's hit run our code. You'd like to access the camera, kind of needs that to be able to use computer vision. And you can see those little dots are the feature points it was talking about. And I have a little target and it says tap anywhere to place. And it looks like it's a lemon. So let's just tap, let's leave it right in the middle of the desk. It looks like it's left it there so I can rotate around it. There's my lemon floating in midair like lemons usually do. I can look underneath it. I can tap any object to reposition it. So if I tapped on the lemon, I can replace it. So let's put it there, move it away a little bit. And now this is the whimsical part. Now I can start the scene. So if I hit start scene, okay, cool. I have a rotating lemon crying, I guess, floating and rotating in midair. Kind of interesting. And if I tap this little button up top, I stop the scene. I can start it again. I can rotate around with it if I wanted to. And you can see when the droplets hit where the bottom would be, where that vertical, the table would be, we can see the little splashes. Oops, and we just lost our lemon. So not bad. If we check out the hint down here in the corner, remember, we usually have hints in our Swift Playgrounds, by Apple anyway. We can try changing do something whimsical to another command, such as do something mysterious. So let's try that. I'm going to tap here behind do something whimsical. I'm going to start deleting. I have a few choices. So I can do something friendly, whimsical, or mysterious. Let's try mysterious like the hint asks. We'll look at that in a second, our second hint. So do something mysterious. So we had our lemon, which is whimsical. So now let's run our code. Okay, we'll see those dots start to appear as our feature points are discovered. We're going to tap right here to place the hand, and it says come closer. Okay. All right, so we've placed it. It says come closer. Let's start the scene. Okay. Oh, wow. Okay, all right, cool. Well, that's kind of interesting. Are you paying attention? Kind of cool. Very mysterious, I guess. This weird hand beckoning to me. So before we go off to the next page, let's try the last one. So we saw that there was something friendly as well. So let's delete that. Do something mysterious. We can also do something friendly. So let's try that out. And we'll run our code. We have some other options we see. Now that we're on the next line, we can actually, there's some other autocomplete options like scene. We could access the whole scene, but we're not going to do that. We'll just run our code. Again, it's going to detect some feature points. Now they've done a bit of extra work here to detect feature points. And like it said, we can look at the shared code to see all the code that went into making this simple function create this pretty amazing experience. So let's tap here to place our eyeball looking thing. Oh, let's maybe add another one. Oh, we can add a few. All right, look into my eyes. All right, there's 2 eyes there. Interesting. We'll place that there. Let's start the scene. Okay, that is pretty funky looking. Now, obviously there's a bit more code because that's pretty amazing. That's a pretty intricate scene for us to just be able to add it with one handy little function. So if we tap this button up here, looks like a bookmark button, we can see the different files. So there's feet, roses, touch, and shared code. Let's look at shared code. Okay, so this is the code that we're actually running. And here's the function. We call do something whimsical. And here, let's stop that over on the side. We can see that we get a hold of a lemon. We use this is how we define properties, remember, in variables. So we have a constant called lemon, and we add the lemon to the scene. We have this on start handler where the lemon's going to animate, and it's going to animate with juice, and it repeats, okay? And then we have it repeat and rotate by so many degrees over 15 seconds. There's also some sound. Now, I don't have sound turned on, so we're not hearing that, but you might be hearing that when you're playing this at your own house. We have a function inside our function called could it go forever? And it'll speak the text, I could fly forever. But it didn't this time. Okay, cool. There's a lemon flying function. There's a lemon play function. There's the mysterious. Here's the mysterious function and all the code it does. Now this is huge. This, you may look at this and go, oh my God, what is going on here? And I think that would be anybody's initial reaction. But you can play around with this because they've made this code available. You can actually go take a look and say, all right, actually, you know what? I might try to replicate this. Now, this is fairly complex and fairly advanced. This is beyond intermediate. But this is interesting. We have our left eye, our right eye, our label, look into my eyes, and we tell it how high we expect it to be off the plane. And then the actions that they run when we animate this stuff. So a whole bunch of code. When we get a little more familiar with this playground, we can play around with that code ourselves and maybe rewrite some of it. In fact, we could even change some of this here. If I say, oh no, I don't want the mouth to animate. I want the left eye or the right eye to animate. Now, this may throw an error, in which case I can always go up here and say reset page. And then it'll throw away that change that I made. Or it should have. Okay, it should have, but it didn't. So what I would do here is then I would just tap on right eye. I could hit undo. That's not going to work. So it was mouth. So we can type back in mouth. Now, if I get stuck and I see this error while I'm editing the code, I can use these two buttons to undo and redo code changes. And if I get really stuck and I do mess up the shared code and I navigate away and I go, oh no, I deleted the do something mysterious function. Now it won't work anymore. You can always re-download the playground from the More Playgrounds page. Okay, so that's pretty straightforward, this first one, because we're just calling one function. Let's move on to the next page. So we're going to go up here, and we're going to you're going to hit this arrow here. Now we're going to add a model to our AR scene. So then we're going to learn how to add an AR model, and we're going to learn what a model is. If we tap on this, okay, it's a 3D object we can place into an AR scene. So the really nice thing about this playground is they provide the 3D models for you. There's a bit of work involved in a whole other series of courses that I can't teach because I don't know enough about it that involve creating 3D resources. Luckily, we have a few built in here, thanks to the artist. So here's an example of creating a model. We can just use this property on the model class. Remember we talked about classes and types back in our earlier lessons with Everyone Can Code Puzzles. So let's do that. Let's create a model just like this. So we're going to create a variable. We'll use the var keyword. We'll call it model. And we'll do just what they did up above. So we'll say, all right, we'll use the model type dot. Now we can pick any one of these. We can pick lightning, moon, traffic cone, flying bug. I'm kind of keen. You know what? Let's do a traffic cone. So now we have our model, our traffic cone. And then it says the next step is to add our model to the scene. So this is a bit like lights, camera, code, where we had to add components to our space, if you remember that lesson. So let's do that. Add our model to the scene so we can access the scene with this variable here, scene dot, there's an add function. So we can add this object imaginary node, or we can call set on start handler. Well, let's add the object. Our imaginary node is our model. So our model must be a subclass of this imaginary node type. If we remember back from the types sessions we did. And then we have an on start handler, and it says to animate our model. Well, let's look up and see what that does. So let's see. When the scene starts, we want to animate our model. Well, this is kind of handy. We can just call model.animate. Let's do that. So model.animate. And you can see there are a couple other properties we can call, properties and functions. We can tell it to disappear, or we can ask for its location. So now that we have all of that done, let's try running our code. So I'm actually going to tap here and expand our view. So let's tap on that. And I'm going to tap on the arrow on the left. Cool. All right. So now I've got my traffic cone. I am going to tap anywhere to place. Let's place it over here on the corner. And now it's not animating because we don't get that function on start handler called until we hit the start scene button. Looking good. I'm going to start the scene. Okay, cool. Well, we get a kind of interesting spin. So it says to us, hey, now that we can add a model, let's try changing it to something else, like a cactus, a foot, or a light bulb. We can add as many as we want. And then we're going to figure out how to scale, move, and rotate our model using actions. Before we move on, let's try adding a few other elements here. So let's stop this. To bring back my code view, I have to go up here. You can sort of see it on my background. There's an arrow. So if I tap on that, my code comes back out. Let's add a few other models to our scene. So how would we do that? I've given you time to think deeply about it. All right, so let's create another property, another variable. We can't call it model again because that'll throw an error if we say model and we try to define one. We'll say model dot, and then remember we had a whole selection of them. Flying bug, maybe let's do a flying bug. Okay, and this is where I have a problem. I've got two red dots and it says model previously declared here. And it's telling me that I've got an error, invalid redeclaration of model. It's because I can't declare two different variables named the same thing. Now I could change my model. If I wanted to change my model to point, instead of to a traffic cone, to point to a flying bug, do you remember how we would do that? I know it's been a while, we've been working with Swift. If we tap on that bar and delete it, now all we're doing is we're saying, hey, take this model variable that I have, and I'm going to assign it to a flying bug. Now I have an issue because it's saying I can't assign the value of type flying bug model to type cone model. How would we fix that? If you think back to the types lesson, we talked a lot about declaring a variable's type. And we did that by using the colon and then the name of the type. So let's try this out. Let's go back here. Oops, keep missing. I'm going to bring up the keyboard by hitting that down arrow over there. I'm going to tap and hold on the space bar and bring it next to my model. I'm going to get the colon down by dragging down from the K and hitting a space. And this is great. It's autocomplete telling me model. So let's do model. And let's see if that fixes the error. Well, it seems to have made it worse. This isn't looking good. So let's see. Let's see what the errors are. It's saying cannot convert value of type cone model to specified type model. Okay, so that didn't work out for us. There maybe is something else. Maybe we saw something about imaginary model. Maybe that'll help. Let's bring this up. See if autocomplete is going to help us. Or was it imaginary object? Imaginary node is what it's looking for this add function. So let's try, instead of imaginary model, we'll use imaginary node. Now it's not auto-completing, which isn't super helpful. But that's cool. If we tell this model variable that it's of type imaginary node, now we can reassign it from a traffic cone to a flying bug. Swift was trying to be super helpful in the first case, and when we assigned the model variable a traffic cone, it said, okay, cool, this will only ever be a traffic cone model. But maybe we want to be able to change it. Now, we only really need to do that if we're going to do something kind of sort of silly like this. I mean, we just assigned this model to a traffic cone, or the traffic cone to a model. Why would we then, without even using it, change it to a flying bug? So maybe what we want to do instead is create a new variable here. So we'll say var, well, actually, you know what? Hit undo. I'm going to hit the undo button here. I'm actually going to just type in var. Now, instead of just model, I'll actually go, and this is not very helpful for me for the future. I'm going to call it model 1 will be my flying bug. Now, if you remember when we talked about variables and naming stuff, do you think model 1 is a great name for a variable? Does it tell me a lot about what I'm going to likely store in this variable? Not really. So maybe let's call this flying bug model. Would that be a bit better? That would be a bit more clear what it is. So let's go change this. Let's go back to the beginning here. We're going to delete the M because we'll make that uppercase. We'll call this one flying bug model. Okay, that's a lot more clear. So I have my model. I might even want to change that to traffic cone model. Okay, so I have my model and my flying bug model. I add my traffic cone model here. In fact, you know what? Let's rename this. Let's tap on this name there. And when we tap on model, we have an option to speak, rename, cut, copy, select as text. Let's hit rename, and I'll show you. I'll remind you of the interesting feature of Swift Playgrounds. So I'm actually going to call it traffic cone model using camel case, if you remember, where the first letter of my variable is lowercase, and then all the other words, when I smash them all together, like traffic cone model, they're going to have a capital letter. So cone is capitalized and model is capitalized, and I get rid of the spaces because if I put a space in, Swift will think it's the start of something else and it'll throw an error. So because I used that rename function, it renamed model down here in my scene add, and then it also renamed it here where I animate my model. So let's add our flying bug model to the scene, because right now we've just created the model. We haven't added it to the actual scene yet. So we'll say scene dot add, and here we go, here's add. And we have an option to do flying cone model. So let's do flying bug model. And then we're going to animate it. So we'll do flying bug model dot animate. Oh, and there's some other options there, but right now we'll just pick the simplest. So we'll pick animate. So let's run our code and check it out. Oh, so it's detected some spaces. So we'll tap anywhere to place our cone. We'll put our cone back there. Now we have our flying bug. Oh, kind of creepy looking flying bug. We'll put it on the corner of the desk. So let's back up and view this. So we've got our 2 items. We're going to start the scene. Okay, interesting. Our cone seems to have lost its bottom, and then our bug is just flying up and down. All right, not bad. Oh, there's its bottom back again. Okay, cool. Well, that's 2 items we've added to our scene. Tell you what, we're going to stop there for today. We're going to explore maybe using some other Swift code that we learned, like maybe collections, like arrays. And we're going to add some more interesting stuff to our scene and try to animate all of it without having to type flying bug model.animate, alarm clock and model.animate again and again. We'll try to be a little bit more efficient, a little bit more lazy, like a real good programmer. All right, I hope you enjoyed that for today. It's great to get back to Swift Playgrounds. I hope you enjoy getting back to Swift Playgrounds in Swift. I think it's a great language to play around with. This augmented reality stuff is going to be amazing. Trust me, this playground's a lot of fun. And we'll see how to write some code to manipulate our objects, rotate, scale them, all the kind of stuff that we did with Reality Composer over the last few days, but in code. So it's very impressive. So we'll see you again tomorrow. We'll be back with the Augmented Reality Playground. And in the meantime, happy coding.